Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway. It's a little bit odd to me. I cover New Hampshire completely. I'm on WFEA in Manchester on 1370. I'm on in Keene on WKBK 1290. Northern part of the state gets picked up by WGN out of Portland, AM 560 and 98.5 FM. But I've never had the Granite State Governor on before. Governor Chris Sununu joins me. Good morning, Governor, and welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Oh, there's a first time for everything, my friend, and today's your first time. It's going to be.
Well, I hope you come back a lot. I want to begin with my constituent beef. I spend the summer in southern and mid-coast Maine, and I always go down, of course, to buy liquor at the New Hampshire off-ramp. But the bathroom's been under construction forever. When are we going to get that done, Governor?
The idea is that we're not going to finish those bathrooms because I want to drive you to the liquor stores and use those and use the liquor stores in the bathrooms of the liquor stores. So because we own and run all of our own liquor stores in New Hampshire, so it's all part of a master plan of not just branding New Hampshire, but getting your dollars in tax-free, sales tax-free New Hampshire.
I just have to ask, don't the people of Maine, the liquor store owners in Maine, doesn't the governor of Maine call you up and complain about that? Because I don't know anyone who's ever bought a bottle of booze in Maine. They just go to New Hampshire.
Oh my God, the governor of Maine doesn't pay attention to anything. God bless her. She's cute. I don't know what to say. She's lost. I mean, they're raising taxes. They're doing everything wrong in Maine. Everyone in New England. I'm not kidding. We're the fastest growing state in the Northeast. Everyone's rushing into New Hampshire. So it's not hard. Our formula is not a secret. I tell everyone that you should just copy it, right? Get rid of your taxes, maintain local control, super efficient government, be super transparent. Good things happen. So I don't know.
Well, Governor, I learned when I got ready for this interview, you went to MIT. And it occurs to me, since I went to the school down the street, has MIT ever had before you anyone elected to statewide office ever? Anywhere?
My dad.
Oh, he's at
MIT?
John Sununu?
Yeah, my brother John was a U.S. Senator. He went to MIT, too. So now, where did you go?
Oh, Harvard. But, we actually studied stuff there that didn't involve math.
There's a reason that the most poorly designed bridge in Boston, there's a reason why we named it the Harvard Bridge, right?
Governor, I want to do politics with you, then policy. President Biden and the DNC is trying to screw with your state. I see even the Democrats sent a letter to them. Not now, not ever, never are we not going to be first in the country voting for Democrat and Republican for president. Will you stick to the law and make sure, no matter what they do, you're going 2 weeks earlier?
Of course we're going first because we do it right. Look, let me highlight for America how stupid of an idea President Biden has just given them in moving what they want to do is move the First in the Nation primary to South Carolina. Do you know in 2020 there wasn't even a primary for former President Trump? Because if you're the incumbent, they don't do primaries. They just give it to you. So yes. President Biden has said, we want to move the First in the Nation primary to a state that is not even going to have a primary on the Democrat side because he's an incumbent running. It's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Their voter turnout is, like 14 or 15%, right? Ours was 50%. We have some of the highest voter turnout, the most engagement. They pick their leaders from this top-down elitist mentality. We are a bottom-up state. You got to earn it. I don't care what your name ID is, how much money you spend. You have to earn it, voter to voter, and that's why New Hampshire is such an amazing first filter for the rest of the country, because we got to look you in the eye. We got to look you in the eye and buy off on you as an individual before we even get to the policy. And so anyways, we're going to have our primary first. I think you're going to have Democrats coming here, by the way, because there's no way the liberal elite is just going to hand over the 2024 election to Joe Biden. They are going to challenge him. They're going to be right here in New Hampshire doing it. So they can try as they might to play games with it, but New Hampshire's still going first.
My guess is that the president wanted it switched to South Carolina because he may draw an opponent from within his own party. And if he does, it's Lyndon Johnson in 1968 looking at Eugene McCarthy. Do you think that's on his mind?
I don't think there's a whole lot on the president's mind lately, to be really frank about it. But I have no doubt. Look, I said this pretty publicly, and I'll say it again. Do you know what the liberal elite say behind Joe Biden's back in Washington, right? Exactly what they said to his face during the primary, that he's an out-of-touch old white guy that doesn't represent the future of the party. There's no way the Kamala Harrises and the Pete Buttigieg just sit back and wait for him to run the show for another 6 years. They're not a patient party. And so there's going to be a contender there. Whether the president actually runs or not, I think is still way up in the air, regardless of what he says. And they're going to challenge him, and New Hampshire is going to be the ideal place to do it because again, you don't have to have the money. The press is going to be here. The Republican primary is going to be in full swing. So it's going to be an exciting time, and I just don't see the Democrat challengers sitting on the sidelines waiting it out.
So to be clear for the rest of our national audience, Governor, New Hampshire has a law. 2 weeks before the first primary, its primary will be there. So no matter if it's in October, November, December, you will move your primary to wherever it needs to be first.
Wherever it needs to be. And look, the Democrat Party say, well, we won't seat your delegates. Who cares? They can try to penalize us any way they want. The opportunity to actually launch your campaign in a place like New Hampshire is just too good for too many candidates. There's too much press here. There's too much earned media, if you will. Challengers and folks that want to run for president are not going to miss that opportunity. Go ask Rudy Giuliani how it worked out for him. If he famously ran for president, he famously said, I'm just going to kind of skip New Hampshire and put all my money and effort into Florida. And, it was just an absolute epic disaster. So people skip New Hampshire at their own peril, and I think that bears it out.
Okay, politics on the Republican side, Governor. Ronna McDaniel wants another term. I've endorsed that idea because I don't think you want to mess around with the party structure at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't even know who would be challenging her at this point. The only names I heard were a couple crazies. So, no, I think it'd be fine if she was there. It's about raising money. It's about making sure the primaries are open and fair and balanced and driving the right message, not just from a national level, but ensuring that local candidates as well are driving the right message. I think one area where the national parties screw up is they forget that the local candidates, the folks running for the House or the state Senate seats or whatever it might be, those are the ones that have the most interaction with the constituents, and those are the ones that can be the best army for your message of positivity, getting something done, not just where you are in a policy, that's easy, but actually engaging with the voter and earning that trust. And I think if the national parties can, at least on the Republican side, spend a little more time investing in those candidates and helping drive a message that resonates, not here's 100 different ideas and 100 different policies. Here's 5 or 6 key ideas, key basics of the Republican tenet that we're going to get back to. Limited government, local control, low taxes, individual responsibility. All those things we do in New Hampshire really, really well, frankly. If you can get back to those basics, you're going to get a lot of independents and even some of those conservative Democrats really excited to say, okay, that's what it's about. And we can find balance with these types of leaders on those types of tenets as opposed to worrying about some of these more extreme candidates that just can't close the deal in November.
Now, Governor, I know you haven't made a decision on whether or not you're going to get on the stage for the 2024 nomination. I'm not going to bother you with that. But I do want to ask you, Chairwoman McDaniel told me last week that expect the first Republican debate in Milwaukee in either July or August. I'm fine with the Milwaukee thing, but I think that's way too late. We're wasting time, money, small dollar attention, the opportunity to brand the Republican Party for what it is in opposition to Joe Biden. I'd like to start in April or May. What do you think about the debate schedule, and how would you organize the debates for the Republican Party?
Oh, no, I have no problem with it being later. I really don't. Look, politics bounces. I mean, things are going to go up and down and in and out. New candidates, new issues are all going to come to the table. I don't mind it being a little later. The First Nation primary here in New Hampshire will likely be in late January, early February, something like that. So I don't mind, for the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months, having a good cohort of candidates battle it out on the stage. If you start in April, look, people want a break. They really do. America deserves a bit of a break from the political rancor and all that stuff. To just start the engine and the machine right back up again so early in 23, I just don't think America wants that right now. And then I don't think a lot of Americans want to engage in a lot of that discussion. So I would challenge you and say I think it can be a bit of a waste of money. But there are going to be candidates still running, getting their message out, all of that, coming in and out of the race. I don't mind that the debates are a little later. I don't love debates in the summer because people are on vacation. Summer is just a very different time. You want to grab people when they're really engaged, and that's in the September, October, November timeframe. So if they want to do stuff in the summer, that is totally fine. But I think you're going to get the most engagement, the highest resonance with the American people with a Republican, especially on the Republican side. Primaries come September, October, November. They're back in the mix of things. Kids are back in school. They're really focused, and they're really looking to 24. People aren't necessarily looking to 24 in April, but.
All right, Governor, now let's talk about the specifics. I expect Governor Youngkin, Governor Abbott, Governor Hutchinson, Governor Noem, Governor DeSantis, former Governors Haley and Christie, and possibly you to be on the stage. The former president has declared. I expect Mike Pompeo to be running, Mike Pence. There are going to be 15 or 16 people in this race. How would you organize it? Ron has suggested two debates that divide up 7 and 7, not back to back on the same night, but different nights. What do you think?
I'm not a fan of that. But again, it's not the worst thing in the world. But I would tell you, I think you just have to let the candidates get in, let them build some resonance, and then make sure that they have both the polling numbers and the financials to earn their space on the stage, as opposed to, two different debates. You kind of get an A team and a B team. People aren't going to watch them both. You're really kind of splitting it up. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's the worst idea in the world, but I'd rather have 7, 8, 9, 10 people on a single stage, a single night with, answering the questions and really challenging each other, as opposed to, hey, I wish I was on that debate stage and I wish I had asked that guy that. And you want the candidates to be able to engage, not just sit there and answer the panel's questions. And I think you do that better on a single stage. But, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Governor, more 2 cents I want from you. We've kind of monetized eccentricity over the past 20 years so that marginal candidates, Michelle Bachmann, nice congresswoman, should not have been on the stage. Alan Keyes, very, very, very controversial figure, should not have been on the stage with John McCain and George W. Bush back in 2000. How do you keep people off? And I don't like the polling metric because people don't know. I mean, if you're a governor of a state, I think you get to be on the stage. And if you haven't raised small dollars, you're not going to raise them unless you get on the stage. So I would rather have a committee deciding this, like the college football playoff committee putting Ohio State in against Georgia on New Year's Eve.
Nah, a committee. Now we're getting into the establishment elite picking and choosing who's on the stage and all that kind of stuff. I don't love that idea. I think a lot of folks that want to run are going to be running. Like, they're going to be out there. They're going to have their name out there. A lot of these candidates have effectively been running for 2 years and going nowhere, frankly. I mean, that's one of the frustrations, I think, that a lot of people are keying in on. So I don't want to pull names, but they've effectively been running. A lot of folks may still get into the race. And if you appear decently on a poll number, then you're making headway. You're engaging with folks. You're going somewhere, especially the poll numbers in the early states like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Florida, where folks are just more engaged. They are ahead of the curve a little bit in terms of the responsibility to look at these candidates. Who's the committee? I don't know. I guess that's now we need a committee to pick the committee. Right?
Yeah, I'm with that. I don't know how to do it, but let me ask you, does the New Hampshire primary retain its cachet if you are a candidate? Does it still matter if you win New Hampshire since you just crushed it? It does matter even if you win it?
Oh, of course. No. What is the South Carolina primary going to be less because you have maybe Tim Scott and Nikki Haley, or the Florida primary because like 4 candidates are running from Florida? No, I mean, it doesn't take away from those states either. So I still have to earn it. Running for president is very different than being governor. Of course, folks know me here, but at the same time, folks are also very smart. The voters are very smart, and they know that you have to bring. I think governor and president have a similar set of skills, but look, you got to earn it one way or the other on the ground.
Well, you sound very fired up for this, Governor. You sound like a candidate.
I'm fired up for everything. I love my job. I'm fired up for politics. I'm fired up for good government. I wish we saw a little more of it, and so I think it's going to be a really exciting couple of years. Look, I just love what I do, man.
Let me go to policy, because I was out with dinner with Guy Benson last night, and we were talking about you and about the fact that you have a good grasp on stuff. I want to start with Ukraine, since President Zelensky was on the stage last night. Do you support the aid package to Ukraine? Do you support our effort to keep Ukraine free?
Yeah, I don't. These conservatives and these Republicans that want to pull money. Look, this is Putin. This is a worldwide player. This is an effective enemy of the United States. Someone who doesn't wish us the best. Let's just put it politely. You have to win. And the Ukrainian people are going to fight until they win. And so we need to back their play 110%. You don't put your foot down on Putin's throat and then halfway through let up and say, now maybe. No, you end it, and you end it strong, because the long-term repercussions of that win are huge for United States interests and, frankly, the world order, if you will, in Eastern Europe. So you have to win it all and see it all the way through. You don't go halfway.
All right, now, on that debate stage, if you're on there, the former president will be on there, whether or not he's indicted. He tells me he's running.
That would be fun.
I was just wondering, does that prospect, I think he's the best interview in America. I tell people that all the time because he always creates news. But do you do you look forward to, or are you afraid of a debate with Donald Trump, given his?
Oh my God, no. Look, I love debate. I love it. I'll debate anyone, anytime on any issue, and I think there's a lot to be answered to. I do. Look, I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not anti-Trump. I think, like most of America, we're just moving on, right?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw you told Bob
really
Costa
simple.
that yesterday. So I don't go over the same ground. I want to go ask you now specifically about one thing about Donald Trump, then to judges. Do you think Donald Trump intended the rally on January 6th to become a mob that entered the Congress? Do you think he intended that?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, that's one thing what the January 6th committee really has. I mean, they've answered nothing, right? I didn't mind the January 6th committee. I thought that was fine because I said, look, why was the Capitol left so unsecure? Why didn't the National Guard get mobilized? What other security? There's so many questions America wants answered from that. We've gotten no answers, right? They've over-politicized the whole thing. It's been an epic disaster, frankly, because it's just all about politics and whether they're going to bring charges on the former president and all of that, to the point where they've actually recommended charges against a former president, and it's barely a headline, right?
Yeah.
Because America has just said, look, this is just getting silly. It's taken you 18 months to get somewhere, but some of the most important questions have not even begun to be answered in terms of safety, security, and that process. So, no, I mean, look, people will let that whole process play out, but I think everyone's moving on.
Well, Governor, yesterday I wrote a column. I wrote a column for the Washington Post yesterday on the Agnew option for Donald Trump. 10,000 people commented, and most of them want to hang Donald Trump. I mean, it's crazy on the left. The people on the right didn't like it because I suggested the president might want to do a civil settlement and get out of this nightmare of lawyers' bills and prosecutions. But does the divide in this country ever heal up?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I am an eternal optimist. I really am. But I'm also on the ground, and I'm seeing it. Come to New Hampshire. Walk the streets here. Look, we're a fairly purple state. We could be so divided in New Hampshire, but we've got a model where we get it done. We're incredibly fiscally conservative. We believe in all those fundamental ideals that I think the rest of America would love to see. And look, do we have our arguments, our fights, our battles in the press? Absolutely we do. But we always find a way to bring it forward. So I am living in a place, I'm looking out the window of the State House right now, in a state that absolutely is a great model for what the rest of the country is looking for. So I know it can happen, and I know it will come. It doesn't just rest on the shoulders of Donald Trump and whether we get past that or not. We will get past it. It is a collective responsibility. So I'm seeing it. I'm living it. I'm loving it. And again, I think there's a huge model here that can be brought to the rest of the country, and that's why I'm so optimistic. If it wasn't happening here, then I'd almost agree.
That's
then
interesting.
It can't happen anywhere. But
no, I got to ask you about judges. I've been following your judicial appointments. They're very conservative. If former President George H.W. Bush had listened to your father and appointed Edith Jones instead of David Souter, the Roe v. Wade and Casey decisions would have been overturned in 1992. But a bad choice was made over your father's opposition, but Gordon Humphrey was the one who pushed David Souter. How important do you think the judicial nomination issue is to picking a president? And will you do what Donald Trump did, publish a list of people you would consider for the Supreme Court if a vacancy came along while you were president?
It's a very important role that the president or a governor takes, but it is not a decision maker on votes. It's really not. I don't think people change their vote based on who someone might pick as a judge. I just don't. I mean, it's incredibly important, but at the end of the day, voters go in because they want somebody that's going to get something done. They want somebody that's going to deal with issues, not just talk about them. So if that's the question in terms of how does it play into the 24 election, I don't think it's huge. I think the Supreme Court has a massive image problem, a massive problem of in terms of its nonpartisan precepts of what it's fundamentally about. They've got to find a way to fix that above all else. Otherwise, I mean, people lose faith in different institutions of government. We should not be losing faith. We can disagree with decisions, but we should not be losing faith in what the court is and its nonpartisan manner of moving forward. Some of the games and the silliness that have happened there. And Justice Roberts really needs to get control of it and figure it out. And whether it's with these judges or future justices, they all have to be part of that solution. I just think the institution as a whole needs a course correction in terms of its marketing, branding, and reinstilling the trust with the American people.
Have you ever talked with your father about the Jones-Souter decision?
Oh yeah. No, it drives them crazy that people blame. People are like, oh well, your father was chief of staff and Souter went in there, and it was never my dad's choice.
It was no, he was opposed to it.
You
I
know.
just read that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. He was very much opposed to it. But at the time, they deferred, and Warren was a great senator and a great statesman for New Hampshire. He was great friends with David, and moved Judge Souter forward, and Judge Souter's back here. He's living here in the cabin in the woods, or he lives out in the countryside in New Hampshire here. So I still see him from time to time.
Are you glad that the court got around to overturning Roe and Casey? I am. This audience is. The Republican Party remains pro-life. Are you glad, even though it probably cost the Republicans some House seats and some Senate seats, are you glad they finally got the Constitution right?
Look, I'm a states' rights guy. There's no doubt about it. What I don't like is there was precedent, right? And there's something to the word precedent. And you had judges, folks that were applying to be judges in front of the U.S. Senate that said, look, precedent is precedent, and implied that there was no sense of changing that, which obviously they massively overturned. Now I'll say this. It's a course correction. It's fine. We'll deal with it. It's back at the state's level. Every state is going to decide their own path. I think what it will do, which a lot of people are not thinking about, it is going to fundamentally change the definition of pro-life and pro-choice. Look, if you're a pro-life governor, if you're going to go out and say you're pro-life, then ban it. And that's your choice, and that's your state's choice. And if that's what your state wants, you can do it. And if you're a pro-abortion governor, like some of these people are that want to see abortion up until the day of birth, which is terrible, then you can do that. And then there's going to be everybody else, right? Where, in New Hampshire we have a 24-week ban, and in another state they might have a 20-week ban or a 16-week ban. But are those is the governor or the legislature that put it in a 16-week ban more pro-life than the governor that does a 20-week ban? It's going to be this kind of amorphous gray area of who's who. And so I think that's going to be I don't know where the dust settles on that, but how we define pro-life, pro-choice is going to fundamentally change, because these quote-unquote pro-life governors can't just say, well, I can't ban it, the Supreme Court doesn't let me. Right? They can't use that as an excuse, as a backstop. If you're really pro-life and you want to ban it, then do it and stand up behind it, and that's your choice.
What is Chris Sununu's position on abortion?
Oh, I'm pro-choice. No, I'm pro-choice. We have a 24-week ban. It's the right thing to do. But no, I consider myself a pro-choice governor, because I would never ban it all the way. Do a full abortion ban. Would never do that here in New Hampshire.
But this will be an important issue in the primaries. Obviously, some states are going with 3-month bans and an abortion exception for incest and rape. You're not in favor of that. 12 weeks.
So is that pro? I'm honestly, I haven't really thought this through. Is that pro-life?
Oh, I don't know. I just asked the question.
If you're allowing choice for the first 3 months, are you pro-life? I don't know. I'm just saying that's where the conversation, I think, is going to go. If you want to ban it, then ban it. And if
it's going to be an interesting conversation, and it's going to matter to Republican primary voters. Let me ask you now about school choice, Governor. Does New Hampshire have any, and if so, how much school choice?
Yeah. I like for 40 years we talked about it. I got it done, and it's awesome. It really is. So we just started the program about 2 years ago. We're in our second year now. Thousands of more families than we thought were going to take advantage of it are taking advantage. It's great. Mostly lower income families that just don't have the same options as let's call it the wealthier families in New Hampshire. So they're allowed to take all the state funds, and they can use it for private school, Catholic school, home school, tutoring, all these other different options for them. It's all about individual choice and individual path. Huge win for New Hampshire.
And is critical race theory and the ideology of transitioning and gender fluidity, is that a problem in New Hampshire schools? I do not see it in my Google alert about you, but is it?
No, it's not a problem in schools, but I made sure that we're no longer discriminating. We're no longer saying that teachers can't get up and basically discriminate against white kids and all that kind of nonsense. We made it very, very clear. You cannot do that in New Hampshire here. So it's not been a problem, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't become a problem.
Now, Governors Youngkin, Hogan, and Ducey, all of whom you've worked with for at least 4 years, they've all banned TikTok. Yeah, they've banned TikTok from every state device. Have you done that? Will you do that?
Oh, yeah, I already did it. No, I signed the executive order a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Excellent.
No,
Didn't know that?
We were ahead of that.
All right. Now, Ron DeSantis, who very likely will be on that stage with you if you're on it, is standing up his own Florida CDC, not to do the studies, but to critique the CDC policies. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't really understand what he's doing. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a good or bad idea. He's creating his own group to basically be a critique, as my understand it. of the federal group. I've got massive critiques. I don't need an organization to tell me that the CDC at the national level is an epic disaster. Leadership should go. The messaging is all over the place. They're not in sync, and they clearly don't understand and have not understood kind of the power of their recommendations, words, and guidance, and how confusing it has created, all the confusion it created from America pretty much from the very beginning. It's one of my critiques when Trump was in office. Look, did we have Fauci? Like, why Trump kept giving Fauci a microphone, God only knows, right? And so when the former president left office, he left us with that guy, and he got empowered even more, and it became even more of a disaster. Walensky went in to now run the CDC, and she's been all over the place. So I think it's a mess. I don't need a committee or an organization to tell me and the American people the obvious. But I don't know. Maybe there's some other function that they're achieving down in Florida. But I'm just telling you, in terms of critiquing that group, I think I got it. I think the American people got it. It's been a disaster.
Last question, substantive, Governor, is about China. I just talked to Admiral Montgomery, one of our national security experts, saying every presidential candidate should have a serious, thought-through position on what China means to the United States, whether it's a threat, whether we should protect Taiwan. Free time. What does Chris Sununu think about Xi Jinping and the CCP?
Look, I think former President Trump had the right approach to China. I really do. I think, you want to talk Taiwan? You have to protect Taiwan. That shouldn't be a secret. That shouldn't be dodged around. I get the politics of that, but you absolutely have to do it, not just for American interests. It's the worldwide interest there. We have to be strong. We've been weak for the last 2 years on China. We have to be strong. We have to be assertive. They have so many issues over there that, frankly, we should be bringing to bear, exploiting, frankly, not just letting them get away with. Whether it's the humanitarian issues, whether it's the slave labor issues they still have going on in the western part of that country. There's just a lot of areas to push. And most importantly, that's where the vast majority of fentanyl is originally created. That's where this opioid crisis that is completely eaten right through America originates. A lot of it starts there, about 85%. Most of it will go to Mexico. About 85% will come up over that wide open border, which I was told by the former president we were going to get a wall and immigration reform. Got none of it. So that is a huge part of it. But it all originates back in China, which is all the more reason we have to be assertive, strong, and make sure that we're using everything we can bring to bear, whether, with diplomacy. I don't mind a little diplomacy. We have to have relations there. There's American interest in maintaining relations, but also making sure they understand who's who in the pecking order and what America brings to bear in bringing that force over, just like with Russia, right?
All right,
you can't go halfway with superpowers. Either you're all in or you're all out.
Let's conclude with two political questions. What's the latest date you can decide on whether or not you're going to enter the presidential race, Governor Sununu?
Oh, geez, I haven't even really thought of that at all. Look, I think anyone could get into the race as late as the fall. I really believe that. Yeah, depending on where other candidates are and all of that. I'm not saying that's the smartest move, but you could get into the fall and make a surge. Remember, think back at all these other races. You could have 10 people in the race, and and they each kind of take their turn surging, right? One person to kind of lead the race for 15 months is pretty much unheard of. So you're going to get all these surges with all these different candidates, which allows other candidates to enter the race and new kind of political variables kind of be brought to bear.
Last question. These debates will matter a lot whenever they begin, and you're for late rather than early. I'm for early rather than late. But Guy and I were talking last night about who should be asking the questions of Republicans seeking the Republican nomination. What's your opinion on that? Because I don't want any more George Stephanopoulos asking Mitt Romney whether or not contraception is under threat.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't care. Like, I take questions from anybody, anywhere, anytime. I got to admit, I've seen Republicans say, I won't go on this newscast or I won't go on that station. I think that's BS. If you're an elected official, stand up and answer the questions you're asked. Who is actually doing it for our Republican debate? If people want it to just be Republicans or just Fox News, okay, fine. But I don't really care. I think everybody should be able to stand up and ask questions regardless of who's answering.
Well, I want to press you on this because I have been frustrated for years. They never get around to the China question. They never talk national security. The Democrats ran for president. They never got asked about Wuhan but once. The question set from legacy media is overwhelmingly left-wing.
Yeah, totally agree, but you have multiple debates, right? That's fine. Have CNN have their debate, Fox have their debate, whatever. But we shouldn't say you're not allowed, from this press outlet, you're not allowed to ask me a question. I think that's That's garbage.
Different question from I just want to know if Republican voters want to hear Republican issues debated, like the pro-choice, pro-life issue you just talked about. That's the most interesting answer I've heard from a candidate, maybe a candidate, in the last 5 years, and certainly since Dobbs. That would require a lot of debate, right? That would require a long time.
No, but I think all the major. I mean, to your point, there's no doubt certain outlets are softer on certain candidates at certain times and all of that. Of course, but that's why you have a lot of debates, a lot of opportunity. I just hate saying no. As I'm an elected official, like maybe if I wasn't an elected official, I think differently. But the foundation of public trust is built on transparency. If you're super transparent, if you answer any question anytime to anyone, you build that public trust, and that's what's going to win it for us in 24. If we are the party that says we're only going to play in this funnel and be asked these questions by our friends, America watches that. And the independents and those conservative Democrats go, well, they're just living in their own echo chamber, as opposed to engaging with us independents on other issues or other questions. So, I agree with you. I think there's obviously a lot of bias that can happen in that process, but that doesn't mean you cut one off or the other. We should just be more open, more transparent, as be able to answer as many questions from as many outlets as possible. That will build us a win in November.
Governor Chris Sununu, please keep coming back. That was fabulous, and have a very Merry Christmas, Governor. Thank you for joining me.
You too, brother. No, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.